Ever since she had walked into that velvet-draped club, caught his gaze across the room, and refused to look away, she had felt his presence shadowing her. At first, she told herself it was a coincidence, that the man everyone whispered about would never waste time on her. But then came the black car outside her campus, the smirk when he fell into step beside her on the sidewalk, the way his voice dropped low enough to send chills across her skin whenever he said her name. He wasn't a coincidence. He was a storm she couldn't outrun. Tonight she was too tired to fight it. Her shift at the bookstore had dragged late, and the weight of her father's debts pressed heavy on her shoulders. She just wanted to get home. But as she turned the corner, she saw them two men standing near the alleyway, eyes sharp, their stance predatory. Fear spiked through her chest, freezing her in place. And then, like he had been waiting for her all along, Adrian's car pulled up. The tinted window rolled down, and there he was, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Get in," he ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. Elena hesitated, her throat dry, her heart racing. "Elena." His voice cut sharper this time, steel beneath silk. "Now." Her body moved before her mind could catch up. She slipped into the car, the door shutting her inside his world, sealing her fate. The drive was silent. She could feel him watching her, his presence filling the air like smoke, intoxicating and suffocating at the same time. She wanted to demand answers, to tell him to leave her alone, but her voice refused to obey. When the car pulled into the underground garage of his high-rise, she finally found her courage. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from me?" Adrian stepped out first, circling to open her door himself, his hand extended, and when she didn't take it, he leaned down, his eyes level with hers. "What I want is simple, you." Her breath caught. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he murmured, his voice dark velvet. "I know you're not afraid of me the way you should be. I know you've been looking for something, maybe freedom, maybe danger. And I know, Elena, that the way you looked at me that night wasn't an accident." Before she could respond, his hand slipped under her chin, tilting her face up until his eyes were the only thing she could see. "Come upstairs with me." "I won't ask again." She should have said no. She should have turned and walked away. Instead, she found herself following him into the private elevator, her pulse thundering with every floor they rose. By the time the doors slid open, she was trembling not from fear, but from the dangerous anticipation curling low in her stomach. The penthouse was nothing like she imagined. Sleek, modern, glass walls overlooking the glittering city below. But she barely had a chance to take it in before Adrian's hand slid across her lower back, guiding her toward the windows. "Look," he said softly, his lips brushing against the shell of her ear. "Chicago belongs to me. Every street, every deal, every shadow. And now, so do you." Her pulse hammered at his words. "You don't own me." His smile was sharp, dangerous, almost predatory. "Not yet. But you will." When he kissed her, it wasn't a question. It was a claim. His mouth moved against hers, with a hunger that stole her breath, his hands tangling in her hair, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. Elena gasped into the kiss, torn between pushing him away and melting into him. She chose the latter. He lifted her easily, her legs wrapping around his waist as if her body had been waiting for this moment all along. The city burned below them, but Adrian's world was all she could see, all she could feel. His lips trailed down her neck, his teeth grazing her skin in a way that made her gasp. "Say my name," he whispered against her throat. "Adrian," she breathed, the sound of it pulling a groan from his chest. That night blurred into heat and shadows, his touch relentless, hers desperate. Every wall she had built crumbled under his hands, every ounce of logic drowned in the storm he brought. She had promised herself she would never belong to anyone, that she would never repeat her father's mistakes of owing her life to a man like Adrian. But when his body pressed against hers, when his lips claimed every part of her, she realized she was already lost. Hours later, when she lay tangled in his sheets, the city lights washing over their skin, Adrian brushed a strand of hair from her face. His expression was softer now, but his eyes still burned with possession. "You're mine, Elena," he said quietly. "And I don't share what's mine." Her chest tightened at the certainty in his voice, equal parts terrifying and intoxicating. She should have argued. She should have told him this was a mistake. Instead, she whispered back, "What happens if I run?" His smirk returned, slow and dangerous. "Then I'll find you. Because there's nowhere in this city you can hide from me." And the terrifying truth was, she didn't want to hide. What Elena didn't know was that stepping into Adrian's world meant more than surrendering her body or her heart. It meant stepping into a war of loyalty and betrayal, a game where blood was currency and love was the most dangerous gamble of all. Adrian had enemies waiting in the shadows, and by choosing him, Elena had just painted a target on her own back. But as his hand closed over hers that night, as his lips pressed one last lingering kiss to her skin, she knew one thing with bone-deep certainty. She would rather burn with Adrian Cross than live untouched by him. And in Chicago, every fire left scars. The morning light spilled across the glass walls of Adrian's penthouse, painting the room in gold. Elena stirred beneath the sheets, her body aching from the night before. For a moment, her lips still swollen from his kisses. For a moment, she let herself enjoy the warmth of it, the rare sense of safety in his arms. But then she remembered who he was. Adrian Cross, a man built from danger, blood, and shadows. A man no one walked away from unscarred. She tried to slip out of bed quietly, but his arm tightened around her waist, pulling her back against him. His voice was low, rough with sleep but still commanding. "Going somewhere?" Her breath caught. "I have class," she murmured. "You don't need to worry about that anymore," he said, pressing his lips to her shoulder. Elena twisted to face him, her eyes sharp. "I worked for years to get here. You don't get to decide that for me." He studied her, amused and dark. "You think you still have a choice, sweetheart? After last night, you belong to me." She should have argued, but the way he looked at her, hungry, possessive, unyielding, made her heart pound in ways she didn't understand. When his mouth claimed hers again, she melted despite herself, surrendering to the fire only he could ignite. The sheets tangled around them as he pulled her closer, his hands tracing every curve like he was memorizing her all over again. She gasped when his lips trailed down her body, her nails digging into his skin as pleasure and fear collided in her veins. He took his time, relentless and raw, until Elena was left trembling, moaning his name into the quiet morning. Afterward, when her breathing finally slowed, he whispered against her lips, "You taste like sin, and I've always been a sinner." Her chest tightened, torn between desire and dread. She wanted to believe this was only lust, that it wouldn't drag her deeper. But deep down, she knew she was already caught. The knock on the penthouse door shattered the moment. Adrian's entire demeanor changed, in an instant, softness gone, danger slipping back into place. He pulled on his shirt, his eyes cold and sharp as he strode across the room. Elena sat up, clutching the sheets to her chest as the door opened. A man in a black suit stepped inside, his expression tense. "We have a problem," the man said. His eyes flicked briefly to Elena, then back to Adrian. "It's Marcus. He knows." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Knows what?" "That you've been keeping her." Elena froze. Her heart pounded as Adrian's gaze shifted back to her, his face unreadable. "Who's Marcus?" she whispered. Adrian stepped closer, his hand cupping her face with deceptive gentleness. "My biggest enemy in this city. And now he knows you exist." Her blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" His eyes darkened, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "It means, Elena, you're no longer just mine. You're his target. Elena barely had time to process the weight of Adrian's words before he dismissed the man in the suit with a flick of his hand. The door shut, leaving only silence thick enough to choke her. She clutched the sheet tighter,